So this slide is just sort of to say, ask the question, if everything is done just right and you have good materials, good design, good construction, then you should have a successful project. And what if any one of these is poor? Dave and I had a lot of fun with that. So let's do that again, right? So remember, as this is happening, what happens to this? So it's like if anything is poor starting from the beginning, if it's the materials, then the project is going to be less successful. And then who has to deal with this being less successful is the operations and maintenance folks usually, especially after a few years. They're the ones that are there taking care of it and responsible for what is or isn't happening and understanding what the O&M plan is. So anyway, it was just something to see that when you get to this point, and actually what I was thinking is there's the author of that small book called Green Plants is Ed Snodgrass. He was here several months ago for the Far West show. And one of his comments regarding Ecoroofs, he's done over, I think, 2 or 3 million square feet of Ecoroofs from supplying plants from his nursery. And what he said is that his first question to a potential client, if he was a designer, would be to ask how much money do they want to spend on the operations and maintenance of the roof before anybody starts designing anything from the client. So the people that are going to pay the bill, how much money do they want to spend? To give them a good idea and then the designers an idea of how they might design this roof. So I thought that was a pretty good question to think about asking. Now everybody's going to be different. So anyway, in general, there are permits that will be required, and Peter's going to talk about that. But in a sense, as it relates to an O&M plan, to my knowledge, I don't know that if you're not asking for something from Bureau of Environmental Services, we require an O&M plan if you're going to use the Ecoroof for stormwater management, for the FAR bonus, for a grant application, or anything that we deal with, we want an O&M plan. I don't know if Peter requires an O&M plan. He's shaking his head no. So technically for BDS specific, if you don't want anything from BES, then you don't necessarily have to have an O&M plan. We encourage you to figure out how to take care of this roof that you're designing, though, regardless of whether somebody wants you to have it or not. And we think that the O&M plan should be prepared by the designer, hopefully in consultation with the other folks involved in the project, especially the operations and maintenance people. A number of projects in the city of Portland have been designed and constructed, and we found out because someone that's in the maintenance business of Ecoroofs was at our first course in the spring, and the way he got his jobs was he happened to be on the sites of a lot of the stuff in the Pearl and the South Waterfront, these large developments, and he does a good job on site maintenance, and somebody said, hey, can you take a look at my roof and give me a bid? So that's how the contractor was hired. He just happened to be there. Nobody else is around. He had a good affordable price, and he looks like he does a really good job. So he's maintaining, I don't know, 5 or 6 Ecoroofs, some of the large ones in town, because he just happened to be there. So ideal, and then in talking to him and looking at circumstances, you can see, oh my gosh, the designers missed a lot of issues. Hopefully we're going to give you some of those in this presentation, but that idea of being able to have a conversation with who's going to maintain the roof, and this is especially on the larger roofs that, especially that have some aesthetic component to them. Anyway, and then determine the importance of aesthetics and other issues. And then in your O&M plan, be specific, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. If you're not specific, the operations and maintenance people are not going to be any more specific, and they're going to just use their best judgment. And if they use their best judgment, then that's what you get. This particular person I'm talking about, I think he has really good judgment, but that doesn't mean that everybody does. And then of course, make sure that somebody has figured out who's responsible to make sure that the O&M staff get the plan and the as-built, which an as-built, for some of you who may not be familiar with that, is that you have your design, or somebody does the design, it's installed by the contractor, and there are always changes. Or if there aren't any changes, you want confirmation that what the design was has been installed the way it was designed. And if they took some plants out, for instance, our roof on this building, they ran out of the supply of plants, and when they got to the northeast corner, there's a quadrant there that has numerous plants that are new to the plant list, and that's because they couldn't find all the other plants, and so substitutes were allowed. And so you want those substitutes or anything else to be documented so that the maintenance person knows that, for instance, on the little corner of our roof on this building, that all of that sedum's not a weed, which obviously they would know it's not a weed, but it's not on the plan, those particular species.